Welcome to another episode of the Investor's Guide to Hard Money Lending, brought to you by CoreLend Financial. My name is Alissa Fowler, and today we have Derek Phillips with Phillips Property Solutions here with us today to discuss, how the market is, kind of what you're doing on rehabs. He's a general contractor, so thank you for coming on, Derek.
Of course, thank you for having me. I appreciate the invite. I don't know where you want to start, but you can fire away, and I'll be happy to talk about it.
Okay, so you've been on our list of preferred general contractors for quite some time. How long have you been a contractor?
So I formed my company in 2019, and I've been licensed since then, but I've been in the construction industry for 20 plus years.
Okay. So tell me, what are you seeing now? I know our market is changed. We're in a little bit of a different market, kind of seems a little stagnant, seeing a lot more. I know through hard money lending, we're seeing a lot more probably turnkey flips or the BRRRR strategy. What are you seeing on your rehabs? What are the goals of your clients?
Well, I think my investor clients, they don't really slow down as long as they're finding the deals. And I think the deals are out there. It's really just about, finding the right seller, finding the right deal, knowing your numbers and seeing if it works. I mean, on the retail side of renovation, it's slowed down quite a bit in the last 6 months. I think the investor market is still hot. I mean, it just comes back to finding the right deals and, finding good contractors to perform the scope of work.
So you say your investors haven't slowed down. What areas are they buying in right now?
38122, I think, is probably the hottest zip code right now. It seems about 50% of the investors I work with are buying in 38122. I think it's because a lot of those houses are in such bad shape. They need a lot of renovation so that you can get them real cheap.
But the rents in this 38122 zip code have steadily increased as well.
Yeah, and just the property value in general, I think, has doubled in the last 5 years. I got a couple of properties in 38122 off of Given and then Pope, and I bought those properties that would have been maybe 2018, and then I sold them in 2022 and doubled the profits on them.
And we're seeing that over here, in that. So, what type of renovations are they doing? Are they basically doing basic rent ready scopes, or are they kind of going more high end finishes to get the rents up? What are you seeing there?
I think that also kind of just depends on the block. You know how it is. It can vary from block to block as to what the comps are showing and how those translate into the rehabs. A lot of people are just doing rent ready, builder grade finishes. Investors want to get as much bang for their buck as possible. So they don't necessarily want to put, high-end finishes in a rental house in 38122. And also is much more cost-effective on the rehab side when you kind of settle down on the finishes. But also there's areas when you get kind of the east part of 38122 where the comps, are showing higher end finishes. So you go up what I like to call like mid-grade renovation, spend a little more on the vanities and faucets and light fixtures and stuff like that.
Okay. Now tell me, this is a thing with investors. Do most of your investor clients, do they request appliances or not in their rehabs?
Typically they don't. If anything, they'll put in a stove and a dishwasher and a vent hood. I mean, those are kind of the basics that pretty much any rental house I think should have personally. But a lot of people are leaving refrigerators out and, don't install washers and dryers.
I gotcha. And a lot of that goes to, it's one more thing. If it breaks, you have to replace it. That's right.
It's one more expense.
Yeah, because I know we've got some investors where they don't even put a stove in. They don't put anything in there because it's all on tenants. That way it's you, because you never know how these tenants are going to treat the appliances or the property. But goes to say too, you go on these higher end ones, it's the expectation.
For sure. If you got a higher rent, people are going to want a refrigerator, a stove, and a dishwasher. I think that again, it's like when it goes block to block and the comps change from one street to the next, that kind of helps you decide how far you want to go with putting stuff in. And for me, it's about vetting tenants. When you find good tenants that don't tear your stuff up, it helps. So,
right. And how do you go about vetting your tenants?
Well, I list my properties on Zillow. They fill out an application. I have a minimum 600 credit score. I need a good rental history. I require my tenants to have renter's insurance. They need a good job history and good references. It's easy for an investor to just want to get somebody in there and get the property cash flowing as quickly as possible. But you got to kind of look at it in the long term too, are these people going to destroy my property? Because maybe you've got rental income coming in, but what happens when you lose it all because they've destroyed everything in the house?
And you have to go and do a $20,000 turn.
Mm-hmm.
That's you taking your profits for basically 2 years total. It's funny. Every single person that comes on here, we talk about Memphis being not even street by street or zip code by zip code. It is literally block by block. For where you see, I mean, you could go a quarter of a mile one way, and the values could be $50,000 higher than previously. So that's something that a lot of investors do, especially new to the market here, that they need somebody seasoned around them, like a contractor that's like you, that's been around for years, that knows the different areas, the different streets, the different pockets to go into, so that way they're making smart decisions.
For sure. I tell my clients all the time, what's more important to you, saving $5,000 on the rehab on the front end, or knowing you've hired a professional who, stands behind their work, offers a 1-year warranty or more. And the quality of work, should be a given. I've seen some pretty bad rehabs on some of these, turnkey rental properties, and it's nothing I could ever put my name on. But also, it goes back to investors looking at the bottom line rather than kind of the future. When you get a poor contractor who does bad work and cuts corners and saves you a few $1,000s, in the end, you pay for it, because stuff falls apart. And then you're trying to get them on the phone to come fix their stuff, and they disappear on you.
You're rehabbing the rehab.
Exactly. It's like paying for it twice.
It is. And that's something like what would you say within hard money of lending, you're familiar with it. Like I said, you've been with us for a while. What do you see some of the most common mistakes that are made from these, like a bad rehab?
I mean, I think there's two sides of the coin. One side of the coin is, hiring the cheapest contractor you can find and having the issues I just mentioned, with things falling apart, and then there being no warranty and being unable to communicate with them. And then you spend half of your time kind of managing the project yourself because of the poor contractor. And then also, I believe you can over rehab a property. You can spend too much. You can put finishes that are too nice, and then you've gone in over your head on the total renovation costs, and then the 1% rule kind of goes out the window because you've already spent so much money on the rehab.
You're exactly right. And on this too, you recently you did your first hard money loan with us. You're fix and flip. Tell me how that experience has been. Like, how did you've been on the other side of the contracting, but now you've been in it, you doing it for yourself?
No, I've had a great experience with that. And you guys, I did a property in Cordova. I got a really good deal on it.
You did?
Yeah, I did. The owner needed to move suddenly and needed to sell it for cash quickly, and so I called you up basically directly. But everybody at CoreLend is a delight to work with, and your communication's on point, and it's pretty easy. You funded the purchase price, you funded the rehab, and
and you got it listed now.
It's been listed a couple of weeks now. The market is volatile, and it's a little sluggish right now, as everybody knows. But I got a cash offer on it last week. It was close to where I wanted to be, but I just there's so much equity in that property that
right.
I can sit back on it for a few months if I have to and try to get my asking price. But no, I've gotten a ton of feedback on the rehab. I got people that walked the house that didn't like the neighborhood so much that have me coming out to rehab another house that they're purchasing.
Oh, wow.
I left one of my yard signs in the garage, and one of the people that walked my property just called me and said, "We love how beautiful this rehab is. We want you to come rehab the house we're
That's
going to
the best
buy."
forward advertising.
Yeah, it worked out perfectly.
So you're doing a job. And so that's what I was about to ask you with it having listed, with it being in this market, and you did a retail flip. How has the traffic been?
I mean, the traffic is slow on the retail side. Cordova has some hit or miss neighborhoods as well. So, some of them are super nice, and the house I did, it turned out amazing. I mean, it's basically, it's by far the sexiest house on the street. I painted everything white outside with black trim and actually peppercorn, but it stands out from every other house on the block, because some of the other houses, there's siding falling off the house, or the curb appeal just doesn't exist. They're overgrown. There's extra cars in the street. And that can be a turnoff for a buyer that's looking for a kind of a high-end property, but they don't want to look outside and see a rundown car sitting in the street.
And Cordova's a little unique in that it got hit really hard by that recession back in 08, 09. I grew up in Cordova. That's street 016 and 018 for those out there. But when the crash happened, you could basically pick up houses 50 cents on the dollar from what people paid for them. And so, whereas it used to be a primarily owner-occupant market, it is a big mix now of owner-occupant and renters there. So that's where you see that, where it's a mix versus what it was in the past.
Yeah, and I think that little pocket that I'm in on Brantley Oak is about half renters and half homeowners. And I think when that subdivision was built, it was all homeowners, and then I think, property management companies and investment firms swooped in there during that recession and bought up half of the houses, and turned them into rental houses.
Because you could get good rents.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, that's kind of all over the city, but you see the values, which I see in that area where you're going, where it has kind of, those values have skyrocketed from what they were 10 years ago in Cordova. It was unheard of back in the 2015 that you'd pay 300 and something thousand in Cordova. Now that's the norm, and it keeps rising.
It does. That property I purchased, the original homeowners, I think they bought it for like $130,000 new.
Right.
Back whenever, 15 years ago or whatever it was that it was built. But, and since then it's still doubled in value, almost close to tripling at this point, just depending on, the comps in the neighborhood. But
yeah. So, you found out you've had a couple of great properties you found out. How would you tell people on going about trying to find deals? So this isn't being a tough market. You've managed to snag a couple of really good ones. What is your advice to people of when you're looking to rehab a property? What things would you give them advice to look for?
Well, I mean, as far as the kind of the luck, I would say in the past couple of months for me, oh, by the way, what I call luck is when preparation meets opportunity.
Right.
So it's really just being ready. I found in real estate, it's all about timing. I found one that I closed on last month on the MLS. It was a 4-bedroom right next to the University of Memphis. I had already had a renter lined up for the property before I purchased it, and it actually appraised for $70,000 over my purchase price before I touched it.
Oh,
so
nice.
There's deals on the MLS, but it was just really about timing on that specific situation where I saw it hit. I happened to be looking, I happened to make the right call at the right time. As far as, some of the other ones that I picked up in the last 90 days, it's really just about me being out there and present and visible, like I have a brand, people know that I'm in real estate. Of course I'm a general contractor. I rehab houses, but I also am an investor, and people know that I'm in the market. So I think if you put your name out there and just let people know and make yourself visible that you are interested in investing or purchasing properties, a lot of times deals will fall in your lap,
You just have to be present. That's what so many people, it's not just going to come to you. It's not going to just fall in your lap. It did in a sense, but you put all that work into first.
Right. You got to take the time to put yourself out there before things fall in your lap. I mean, it's the preparation aspect of preparation meeting opportunity. I mean, if you don't do the work on the front end, opportunities don't just really show up, unless you're ready for them.
Well, and then also too, like how you said you've gotten business from your flip that you're doing because of the quality of work. It's having your reputation, behind your name, that it's a quality one.
For sure. And I think as an investor, I'm big into networking. You need to build relationships with people. If you're looking at working with wholesalers, you need to connect with all of these wholesalers on social media or whatever it is, and let them know that you're a serious buyer. So like when the deals come in, you're ready to pounce on the deals.
And you follow through and close.
Exactly. You can't just shoot a couple texts here and there. Like you got to jump on it and attack it, because there's hundreds more that are doing that legwork and attacking, and you kind of just got to beat them to the punch to get the deal. And
if you continually you do attack and you pounce on it, but then no, I back out, and you back out a few too many, they're not going to be calling you for their next great deal that's come by.
That's right. People who have deals, they want to work with people who take action. They don't want to play back and forth games with you.
The tire kickers.
The tire kickers. I have a sales process for my renovation business that weeds out tire kickers. I won't go into all that, but it's really just about,
Well, go into that a little bit. How do you weed them out? Because it's kind of same general concept. You don't want people wasting your time.
Yeah. I've always said that our most valuable asset is our time. It's really the only thing we can't earn back. Once it's gone, it's gone. So, part of my process is, I have a consultation fee to even come out and give you an estimate. It starts with a phone call. I ask potential clients to send me a handful of pictures of the property, or say it's just a bathroom renovation, or say it's a whole flip. I like to get some pictures in front of me, and then I kind of like to talk to the client about, what their motivation is. What's your goal? How do you want this to, if you could wave a magic wand at this, what does it look like at the end? And how do you know you've hired the right contractor? This kind of just gets down to the motive behind the client. And then I like to talk about money over the phone. This is all part of my initial phone consultation and what it might cost the client to do this. So if they've got a 3-2 that's 1,500 square feet over here in Berkeley and they want to make it rent ready, I can tell them, you want to remodel the kitchen and both the bathrooms, and you want to move the laundry room, add new flooring, new windows. It's going to be in the $40K range or whatever. And so that's, that.
It could go north of 70.
It's really just trying to gauge where they're at, because I know what I cost to do the work. And if they think they can do this same work for $15,000, they're probably not a good client for me, and we're not a good fit to work together. But, that's part of that tire kicking, the weeding out of the tire kickers. And I move on to what I call the influencers. It's anybody that has an opinion on the project. I want them there during that consultation. And it really just keeps things transparent. Communication is clear and open. There's not some crazy uncle coming out of left field saying it should have been done this way.
Oh, because there will be.
And there are. And it just, I've been through it all. I've been in the business so long. And then when I talk about the consultation fee, it's $150 for me to come out and do this consultation. It's 100 pictures. It's a walkthrough video. It's
which is nominal for your time. Your time is worth more than that.
Oh, way more. But that's really just to keep me from completely losing.
Right. Because people will take as much as you're willing to give.
Oh, yeah. And nothing against investors. I'm one of them. I know where they're coming from, but their bottom line, they want to save every single dollar where they can. And, I get it, but it's also, I think, important to, work with professionals, that are going to see it through to the end and are going to stand behind their warranty and all of that stuff. But back to the consultation, it's pretty simple. It's $150 for me to come out and do that consultation. I put the scope of work together, and then right at the bottom of the scope of work, there's the discount for $150. So if we move forward with the project,
they get that money back.
They get the money back. And I don't send them an invoice till they've received their scope of work and the photos and videos and all that stuff. I don't charge on the front end. There's been plenty of times where investors have just stiffed me for the $150. They've got the information they wanted, but that's part of the business. Then I already know up front that they're not a good fit to work with me because
right.
They're dishonest. Yep. Yeah.
Right. And how important would you say when people are looking, even investors or retail, when you're looking for a rehab quote, how important is to usually get like a second opinion or at least get one extra quote?
I don't need to myself because I know what I'm doing.
You know what you're doing.
I tell people all the time to get 2 or 3. It's good to compare apples to apples. You might have one scope of work that's $25,000 and then I come in at 35, but a lot of times there's a lot of things missing on that $25,000 scope of work that come up, and then you're in the middle of a rehab. You've already paid 25 grand, but now all of a sudden your contractor's saying, oh, well, the subfloor is falling apart, so we're going to need another 20 to fix the subfloors throughout the whole house. That's part of the consultation, on my side, where I'm going in, I'm looking for red flags. I'm looking for foundation cracks, bad subfloors. We're looking at roofs and mechanicals and all the things that actually cost a lot of money, and you need to know about up front before you even put an offer on the table.
But those aren't the sexy items that are flashy and show up in pictures. But those are important for the actual integrity, the structural integrity of the property.
Yeah, I mean, I work with a ton of out-of-state investors that I've never even met in person. Like I've kind of built a reputation as the best communicator they've ever dealt with. I mean, communication to me is the most important part of building a professional relationship with somebody. Like if you reach out to me and I don't answer, I'm calling you back in 5 minutes or whenever I'm available. Or I've got a project manager that can also answer questions about anything in the field. And I also have a client dashboard. So it's updated in real time every single day with photos and notes from the project, whatever's happening that day, progress that we're expecting the following day or week. And so my clients that I've never met and they're out of state, out of country, can go on at any time and see exactly what's going on with their project. And they never feel like they're left in the dark. I think that's a big problem with a lot of investors that, invest in the Memphis area and have never even been here and just,
they trust too much.
Yeah. And then they get burned. And I probably get 10 calls a week from people who have hired the wrong guy, and then they need me to come in and fix the problem. And it ends up costing them twice as much because they made a bad decision on the front end with the contractor.
And that's a common occurrence because Memphis, like it or love it, it's a hustle culture. And so you've got people, they are going to, if you don't have that relationship established, there's no saying like, hey, I can make a quick buck here and not necessarily do the work. And then you have no recourse really. Which that's why you go into like a secondary scope of work. We require some of our borrowers a lot of times like, why do I need this? I'm going to do it and I know I can do it for this. But then you bring it up, you come in back and they were going to install HVAC unit. Well, they missed out all the duct work or stuff. That's not on there. Or this isn't on there. This is expensive things. So it's really telling them this is for your protection as well as ours, because you certainly don't want a change order of 15 grand right here because that's not accounted for in the rehab budget. And then you're coming out of pocket when you wouldn't even have done the deal had you known that at the beginning.
Yeah. And I think like having a consultation or having a second opinion on your side, on the lending side, having a professional go in and double check their scope of work is key. You want your clients to win. We want them to win. Like you win. If the client wins, you win. And then it's a return business for everybody. And the big wheel keeps on turning. And I think.
Yes. And then also worst case scenario, we know that what we can get it done for, if that person decides to walk away from the project.
Right. And I as a preferred contractor with you guys, I've seen what happens when you've got to take back a property and, people make mistakes and can't make their payments and all that jazz. I mean, it's part of the business. I mean,
you've done a huge one for us, like 1207 Central.
We've done a few big 6-figure rehabs that have needed some serious attention. But it's important for everybody to get multiple opinions on, I think investors make the mistake of coming in because they've done a couple of rehabs, a couple of flips that they know, what all these things cost. And maybe they got those numbers on the first one they did a year ago or whatever. And then they're expecting those same numbers. And it's likely, it's not realistic.
So what is that like with costs over the past year? What has it been on rehabs? What are you seeing? Are materials still increasing? Are things still increasing? Are they staying the same? What are you seeing there?
The last year, there's been slight increases, just with inflation in general. Mm-hmm. But material costs have, really leveled out in the past couple of years. Material costs haven't gone up much. Of course, labor costs go up a little bit every year, just with cost of living and all of that stuff.
Yeah, I see more so in the increase of when you're doing the central HVAC and those big mechanicals, not necessarily the cosmetic things, but the guts of the
Yeah, I mean, HVAC systems have gone up more than anything in the past couple of years. 5 or 6 years ago, you could do a full HVAC system for $6 or $7 grand with ductwork,
Right.
and it's double that now.
Yes. 10 to 13 grand.
Yep.
Is typically what you're going to see. So tell me, what has been one of your biggest, horror stories, either investor contracting work or?
My biggest horror story was just making a bad decision with a tenant. I've kind of got a bleeding heart. I want to help people, and people that have had bad luck or bad things happen to them or whatever. I had a rental property in Germantown, and I let some people move in without doing the correct vetting on the tenant. I first of all, the deposit never cleared before they moved in. That was a big mistake there. I learned a lot from. And then
'cause now they're in,
and they have this big settlement coming and all this stuff, so where they're going to be able to pay. Their credit wasn't great. It was below 500, and they had all this money coming in. They were going to pay for the whole year up front and all these things, right? But it ended up falling through, and then they stopped paying. I was in Nashville at the time, and I lived in Nashville. And so I had to go through the whole eviction process with them, and then make trips from Nashville to Memphis to go to court. And by the end of it, it cost me over $25,000 just dealing with all from the eviction process to lost rent, deposits, and damages to the property. I mean, their dog basically destroyed all of my original hardwood floors in the house. I mean, it was a nightmare. But with that said, I learned a ton.
You learned a ton, and all these they're expensive learning lessons, but that's what people that have been in it and experienced it. You take the knowledge, our mistakes, and use those so you don't make the same ones.
For sure.
But that's what a lot of people don't understand too, that investing, it's really rewarding, and you can help a lot of people. But there's the dark side of it too, where you've got to be prepared for these things of what if they do destroy your property? What if they don't pay? It's not always easy to get them out because you've got people that know how to work the system.
Yeah, and they do, and they will. I think from that experience, it makes me a little jaded maybe, and just a little more cautious with who I allow to rent the properties. I know we talked about it earlier about the guidelines I kind of stand on. I'll die on that hill where you got to meet these requirements to rent the property.
Right. So tell me, any questions you have for me?
What's if you were to give advice to a new investor, what advice would you give them as far as, finding the right lender?
If you are a new investor, find a lender that invests themselves, that they know the market, they're very familiar, there have been boots on the ground to do it, because chances are, like we make mistakes, learn from our mistakes or learn from our knowledge, and don't say, well, you did it this way, but I'm going to do it my way if you've never come into this city. As a new one, just you look for knowledgeable people and look for people that are going to work with you and want to see you succeed as much as the company succeeds. So I would say that is and form that working relationship, because with anything, and there's other hard money lenders, and this is throughout the nation. But the more you do with the same hard money lender, the more that relationship becomes established, and the easier it is to get things done, because it's like, we trust you because you've done exactly what you say you're going to do 3 times now. All right, things get that much easier, and vice versa. That you come to us now, it's going to be, hey, I'm going to get approval real quick because they know me, they know my work, they know what I do. And so it just becomes a lot more seamless to be able to work through that whole process.
Yeah, it's all about building relationships, especially in the Memphis area.
It is, because you can build it up in Memphis, but you can also get run out of town real quickly if you don't do the right thing. Yeah,
I mean, you only get one chance at a first impression, and what if you build a bad reputation, it's easy to be shunned, and it's hard to wipe off a stain once you've made one.
It is, because this is one big small town, I like to say.
It is.
So, well, I appreciate you coming in and speaking with us. Anything you want to tell about your company?
I mean, I think I've covered some of the key points about how I operate and the level that I try to hold my team to, and the kind of communication we're trying to put out there, and the quality of work we won't settle for anything less. And I'm pretty visible. I'm easy to find. If anybody's looking for, a good contractor that they can trust, I can be reached at by phone or website or Facebook.
Or reach out to us.
Or reach out to you. So I appreciate you having me.
Well, thank you very much. And thank you all for tuning in.